Welcome, everyone. As I am delighted to share with you this segment called For the Shabbos Table for Parsha Shmini. And this share is made possible by a grant from the Reuben family with the Tefillah to Hashem that they should be zeicher for a healthy Ben Zachar, and of course to have Hatzlach and Ruchnius and Gashmius. We thank the Reuben family for making this share possible, and we welcome all of you to it. It says in Shmini, Kach L'cha Egel, you should take a calf as a carbon, and Rashi says, Loidia shemechapeleh HaKadosh Baruch Hu al ma'aseh egel she'asa, that will be atoned for the egel, for the sin of the golden calf that we did. You know, an egel for an egel. In general, we know that this is one of the threads that runs through all of time, and that's Mida Keneged Mida. B'Mida Sha'ad Maided Maided in Lai. We already saw that by the beginning of time. The Nachash caused man to die by seducing Chava to eat from the Eitz Hadas, and therefore man would now lie prone in the ground, flat in the ground, and therefore the Nachash was punished to slither on the ground for all time. He tempted Chava with the taste of the fruit, and therefore he was punished that he would never taste anything. It says, Offer teichel kol yemei chayecha. Now, if you go to a zoo, they don't give earth to the snake. You'll see in the zoo they feed steak, but it doesn't taste. It tastes like earth. It doesn't have taste buds. And therefore, that was Mida Keneged Mida. You're tempted that it was a very tasty fruit, therefore your taste was taken away. And we know that Mida Keneged Mida was one of the great things that we reflect upon during the Seder Shel Pesach, when we do the Makis. And as Yisro said, Ki badavar asher zodu aleihem, that which they plotted befell them. They put Jewish blood into the Nile was turned into blood. They didn't allow us to bathe, and we were lice infested, therefore they were stricken with lice. They made us work in the night like in the day, and therefore in the plague of darkness, their day became night. They tried to and killed B'nai B'chari Yisrael, Hashem's firstborn Yisrael, therefore their firstborns died. And they threw our Jewish babies into the Nile, therefore they drowned in the Red Sea. Everything is Mida Keneged Mida. The great crystal ball of what's in store for a person is B'Mida Sha'ada Maided, the way a person acts, Maided in Lai. As the Baal Shem says, Da Mala Mala, you want to know what's in store from you above, Mimcha, look at yourself. The way you behave, that's what's in store, and that's why he says Mimcha is Mida Keneged Mida. It's the great boomerang, right? Hashem Tzilcha al Yad Yaminecha, Hashem is the shadow on your right hand, like a shadow, just like a shadow mimics us to perfection. Hashem mimics us to perfection. At the Levaya of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Rabinowitz in Petach Tikva, there were hundreds and hundreds of yeshiva bachrim that came. It was one of the massive Levayas in Petach Tikva. When they got to the cemetery, at the moment that he was being buried, they were also doing a levaya of a 103-year-old woman that passed away. And that 103-year-old woman had very few people by her levaya. You know, when somebody's 103, they outlive all their friends. And she really didn't have much of a family, so it was a very, very tiny levaya. And she was zeicha that hundreds and hundreds of yeshiva bachrim attended her levaya, and was there for the Kaddish, because it was at exactly the same time. And the Rabbanim that were there, you know, they wanted to see, you know, there's no mikra, there's no coincidence, there must have been a reason. So they looked into it that 83 years before, when she was 23 years old, she heard that at that time, the fledgling Torah's Emes, the fledgling Torah Vidas, of Shag Freivel Memdelovich, was having tremendous financial troubles. And as a 23-year-old girl, she went around door to door and collected and sent a sizable amount of money to distant Torah Vidas and helped the yeshiva greatly at that time. And therefore, there's no wonder. She helped the yeshiva bachrim, and therefore she was given the covenant achron by hundreds of yeshiva bachrim. That's mida keneged mida. Ein shikol lefnei kisei kvodecha. Right? That's what it says about the Rebbeinu Shalom, right? That ata zeicher ma'aseh olam ufoked yitzurei kedem. When Reb Chaim Kanievsky heard this, the Yaleinu L'Shabbat says, it reminded him of another story that happened. In front of the Beis HaKnesses HaGadol in Bnei Brak, there was a tragic car accident, and a woman died. And it was at a time where they were doing forced autopsies in Eretz Yisrael, and they knew the Mishtara, the police, would come and they would take the body to do an autopsy. So they grabbed the body and they brought it into one of the rooms in the yeshiva, and in the meantime they said that there was a mitzvah of a levaya, of a meis mitzvah. Bnei Brak, people heard about a meis mitzvah. Hundreds of people came. When the authorities saw that there were hundreds of people there, they went away. They gave up on the idea of doing an autopsy, and they took the woman to be buried. And again, they looked into it. What merit did this woman have? And they found out that after the Holocaust, she diligently helped to bury people that were strewn around, that weren't buried during the Holocaust. I already mentioned recently that my uncle, Moshe Weiss, the father of the Minchas Asher, helped the Klozmer Rebbe bury the Kedoshim after the war. And it's a tremendous thing. And here we see the Mida Keneged Mida. She helped to bury people, to bury Kedoshim, and therefore she was buried in a remarkable covet. I want to, you see, this concept of Mida Keneged Mida is very important to really actualize, because it's an incentive for us. We have to know that if we talk softly to people, then we will merit that people will talk softly to us and not scream at us. And the other way around, if we scream at people, then when we don't want it, people will scream at us. If we become a nag, then one day we'll be nagged. And if we're patient, then when we need patience, we'll receive patience. It's interesting, the Ran, in his drushes, says that Mida Keneged Mida is very important because it allows a person to diagnose what they're doing wrong. It's a very important thing. So here a person has a toothache. He said, why do I have a toothache? Am I eating something that I shouldn't be eating? Am I eating without a bracha? Am I forgetting to make a bracha achrayna? Am I gnashing my teeth at my wife in anger? There's an unbelievable story that Talmid Chacham who had the zechiyah to be in the yeshiva in Radin by the Chavetz Chaim, he says that when the Chavetz Chaim was 83 years old, he called in this bacher. He was lying in bed with weakness, and he asked the bacher to open his mouth. The bacher was very distraught, But the Chavetz Chaim said, he opened his mouth, and the Chavetz Chaim had 2 rows of gleaming white teeth at 83. And then the Chavetz Chaim said to him to count his teeth. You have to understand that this is not the days of cosmetic dentistry and sophisticated hygienic dental cleaning. And the Chavetz Chaim said to count his teeth. Now the Bacher, to count his teeth, he would have to put his finger deep in the Chavetz Chaim's mouth. But the Chavetz Chaim told him gently, please count my teeth. So painstakingly, he put his hand in the Chavetz Chaim's mouth and slowly counted the lower, the upper. Chavetz Chaim had 32 teeth. That's a full set of teeth. It's famous, it says that the Goyim have 31 teeth, and Yidden have 32 teeth. Loi osa chein l'chol Goy, that's Lamed Aleph, 31, that's l'chol Goy. Umishpotim Baal Yidam, Baal Beis Lamed, is 32. A Yid has 32. Chavetz Chaim had 83. Didn't lose it. This is before antibiotics and sophisticated dentistry. At 83, he had a full set of teeth. And the Chavetz Chaim told him, you know why? I watched my mouth, so Hashem watched my mouth. It's Mida Keneged Mida. The Chavetz Chaim smiled. I fulfilled Yoisha Chavetz Chaim. I watched my mouth, so Hashem watched my mouth. That's the second thing that the Ran says. And when he has good, he will know why he's getting this good. It'll encourage him to continue good behavior. It's interesting because there's a famous Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara in Brachos says that Misha Yisurin Ba'an Olav, if somebody has suffering, Yefashvesh B'maisav. He should look at his deeds. There's another Girsa, Istamra Yemashmesh B'maisav. Yefashmesh B'maisav he should look at what he's doing wrong. And Yemashmesh B'maisav is he should feel his good deeds for imperfection. Is he davening without kavana? Right? Is he making brachas too fast? Is, he learning, but he interrupts his learning a lot of time to look at his phone. So then the Gemara says, Pish Beish V'loi Matzah. If he searched and he didn't find anything, then Yitla B'Bittul Torah. He should assume it's for the sin of Bittul Torah. So there's a very obvious question. What do you mean he should assume it's Bittul Torah? The first thing, when he checked if he was Mavatul Torah. So, he went through his day and he saw that, he goes to work, he helps his wife, he spends time with his children, he already saw that this. What do you mean Yitla B'Bittul Torah? So one answer is Yitla B'Bittul Torah, you should assume that the reason why you didn't find it is because you didn't learn enough Torah to know if you're doing Averis. So if you would know and learn the 3rd volume of Mishnah Berurah, you would know that you're doing Chilul Shabbos, you're doing Beirer, you're doing other things. If you would learn Hilchas Lashon Hara, you would know that you're speaking Lashon. The reason why you didn't find it is Yitla B'Bittul Torah. But there's another pshat. If you see suffering, Lo Yaleinu, Pish Beish B'maisav. Look and see from what the suffering is. Use reverse Mida Keneged Mida and try to figure out why you have that suffering. So let's say, for example, a person is being plagued by migraines. So then we tell him, well, think what you're doing with your head wrong. Right? Maybe you're having sinful thoughts, immoral thoughts. Right? Maybe it says that you shouldn't hate a person in your mind. Maybe you're hating people with your mind. Maybe you're bearing a grudge. It says Lisitar. Pishbeish v'lei matzah. He doesn't find what he's doing wrong with his head. Then yitla b'bittul Torah. You should know that bittul Torah is a reason why anything could be wrong with the body, because Talmud Torah is keneged kulam. Talmud Torah equals everything. I remember I said this over probably close to 40 years ago on WNYM radio. I used to broadcast on WNYM radio, and my Rebbetzin Alei Shalom would be at the radio station and be manning the phones, and I would announce the phone number so people could call in and give money because I had to pay for the radio time. I remember at that time I had Daf Yomi on the radio from 1 to 2 in the morning on 13:30 a.m. WNYM radio, and in order to get that Daf Yomi, I paid $200 a week, $800 a month. It was almost double my rent. At the time, I was renting by a wonderful family. They're still there in Staten Island. They should be Gazon, the Chait family. My rent was $450 a month, and I was paying for the Daf Yomi $800 a month. And so I remember that when I said this vart over, somebody called in and said, "What about lower back pain? Why would a person get lower back pain? What could be the diagnosis for lower back pain?" So I remember saying on the radio that the spine controls many of our movements. So it's hard to diagnose why it happens, because it could be many things that we do wrong. I mean, the Gemara tells us that we should attach significance to our spine to the way we bow in modim. You're supposed to bow down in modim. Some people just tilt their heads, give a little nod. You're not supposed to give a little nod. So that could affect the spine. You know, that everything is midah keneged midah. B'midah she'adam moided in life. So, we've spoken before about the great Rav Schneider, who was Rosh Yeshiva in London. I just want to give you an example of the koyach of midah keneged midah. At the time in London, it was a wartime. It was the time of the Blitzkrieg. The Nazis bombarded London, and it was very rough times. In the yeshiva, there was a lack of food. And even the local bakery didn't have bread. We're not talking about extras. We're not even talking about macaroni, just bread. So there was a bakery far away that was willing to give a sack of bread to the yeshiva every day, but they didn't have any ability of transport. So there was one bacher that took a cart and walked a huge distance back and forth to bring bread for the yeshiva. And he did this every day. An amazing thing. Rav Schneider told him, midah keneged midah, you're supporting the yeshiva with food, you will be blessed with an oisher rav, with a great wealth. You know what that bacher's name was? The famous, legendary Moshe Reichman, who became fabulously wealthy. There was another bacher in yeshiva. He was the veker. He used to wake up people in yeshiva that they should get up in a pleasant way. They should get up for davening. And Rav Schneider gave him a bracha that when he grows up, he should wake up, stir people, and illuminate them in Torah. And that, that bracha was? Rav Moshe Sternbach. Moshe Sternbach, there's a new Haggadah that came out by Art School in English from Rav Moshe Sternbach, a wonderful Haggadah. I recommend you to get it for the Seder. It's absolutely wonderful. These are two examples of midah keneged midah. I think about my own personal life, and I only say it because of we're talking about midah keneged midah, measure for measure. So when I was Meshamish Ramosha, I had the schiyah being Meshamish Ramosha for 10 years, I would many times bring him his Mishnayos. He would learn Mishnayos always. When he took off his tefillin, I would bring him the Mishnayos. And who knows, maybe that's why I have the merit to learn Mishnah Yomis and to have already finished the full cycle on Kol HaLashon of 6 years of the Mishnah Yomis. And it was during a very hard time in my life when my first Rebbetzin was dying from pancreatic cancer, and I didn't miss one day of the Mishnah Yomis, which I look back and I can't believe I did that. But perhaps it's Mida Keneged Mida for bringing the Gadol HaDorah's Mishnayos. And Hashem has given me, B'li Ayin Hara, the chance to be Ma'orah people. I was a Veker, not for a very long time, but in the yeshiva of Staten Island, there was a period that I was a Veker and I woke everybody up for Shachris. Ein shikha lefnei kisei kvodecha. Hashem doesn't forget things. He doesn't forget things. I remember that I was saying Daf Yomi in my shul in Staten Island, and Eli Teitelbaum was then giving out for Daladaf. And I remember I had so much tsar, so much distress, but it wasn't possible. He wanted everything ahead. So when I was learning, let's say, Chulin, he wanted Dafim B'chayris. And I just couldn't do it. You can't be learning in two different places, and he wanted it, with a pressurized schedule. And I remember feeling so bad about it and being distressed that I couldn't. Maybe it's in reward that I was distressed, that I wanted to have a chelik in that later on, David Panzer would come over to me with 3 phones. I remember in the beginning, he came over, I was saying Shir in the Svadish Shul, Daf Yomi, he came over with 3 different phones, and he says, whatever you have signal with, you should put on. We have something called Kol HaLashon. So maybe it was Mida Keneged Mida, because I wanted to do so much for Daladaf that Hashem rewarded me to be able to do for Kol HaLashon. But everything that we do in life, that's the way it works. Everything that we do in life, b'mida she'adam moeded, moeded in life. That's why it's so important to be a good husband. It's so important to be a good wife. Hashem says to the husband, your family is tully in you, and you're tully in me. The way you take care of your family, that's the way I'll take care of you. Mida Keneged Mida it revolves around us at all times. And the way it's like Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who wasn't feeling well at the end of his life. He said, I know it's not something with the stomach, because I was always so careful with what I eat. Right? He knew that by Mida Keneged Mida, it just couldn't be. B'mida she'adam moeded, moeded in life. This should be an incentive for us. It really should be an incentive that we should be nice to people. Because if we're nice to people, then Hashem will make it that people will be nice to us. We should be sensitive to people, then people will be sensitive to us. We should be there for our spouse. Hashem will make it then when we need something, people will be there for us. People go into a doctor's office and the doctor is impatient and the doctor doesn't give them time and they so much want the doctor's attention. It's because they didn't give people attention and give people time. It's b'mida she'adam moeded, moeded in life. I want to thank the Rubin family for making this segment possible. Also want to say that on TorahAnytime.com, on YouTube, there's a shir that I gave on Parshas HaChodesh, which is all about humility. It's a fascinating shir. Wherever you listen to me, if you listen to me on TorahAnytime.com, you should subscribe to my shirim. If you listen on YouTube, you should subscribe. There's also a shir that I gave today to the Tillim Army. It's a wonderful group of children, hundreds and hundreds of children that say Tillim for Eretz Yisrael. It's based in Baltimore, run by Moritziri Price. You want to hear Chizuk to the Tillim Army, that's also available. Also, some of my shiurim on the Haggadah are available, of course, on TorahAnytime.com for many years, and on YouTube I started putting them on as well. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful Shabbos.